Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen just yet, but apparently the Desert Treasure 2 blog post just got posted sometime today. Also announcing along with a poll over the latest proposed rewards and such, at least concepts, for the latest quest. That's going to be coming up fairly soon. Alongside with what was it, at least four new repeatable bosses and such. I think it might be a little bit more, one or two more, but at least four, which is kind of crazy. And there's a lot of really interesting proposed rewards. Some of them I actually think we've been a little bit overdue for, and then others I'm like, I'm not too sure about this yet. So I wanted to go over it, kind of read it over with you guys, give my thoughts, hear your guys' thoughts about it, and just kind of go from there. I kind of skimmed through like the first half of it and stopped reading, but I'm just gonna start from the beginning for anybody who has obviously not seen it yet so far. Okay, so there was some initial feedback and clarifications, which confused me because I didn't even know they already like announced some of the rewards already. I'm like, did they talk about this already? Like what the rewards would be? I'm a little confused, but I'll just quickly go over a little bit. It's a little bit of a spoiler about some of the stuff they're talking about, but there's gonna be some context about this later on when we get to actual wars. I'm just gonna read it real quick. So apparently, some players were asking about whether or not the Virtuous armor would be stronger than Ancestral. So it's a new magic armor, basically. They said we'd like to reiterate that we're aiming for rewards below raid level. So kind of like how the Phantom Muspa provided an upgrade to the ancient staff, which essentially became the second best in slot wand, essentially one-handed magic weapon, just slightly under the Kodai wand. I'm assuming they're kind of doing the same thing, just with other magic gear, magic armor, I should say. So this would probably be like the second best in slot. So this would kind of be the in between Ancestral and Arams in a way, which I do think we're kind of overdue for. There hasn't really been any in between. Like the gap between Arams and Ancestral was decent enough, at least in terms of price point, for sure. That we having something in between would be a little bit nice. So nice there. In content where you're using powered staves like Tunic and Shadow or the Trine of the Swamp, we'd expect Ancestral to remain on top. The goal is for the Virtuous to feel like a choice worth making in some situations rather than an outright upgrade. For context, basically they're suggesting that this new Virtuous armor is going to be specifically to buff ancient magic specifically. So basically what they're saying here is if you're not using ancient magic, Ancestral is probably going to still be best in slot, but if you're using ancient magic, then this would probably be a little bit better. Next up, some players would like more clarity on exactly what's meant by freeze penetration and have concerns that being able to freeze NPCs more readily might trivialize parts of the game. We understand these concerns, and the initial blog is perhaps a little vague. Again, I don't know, I don't even remember seeing this initial blog, so I'm a little confused on where. Maybe someone in the comment section could let me know where that came from. Maybe what was a part of the forestry blog, because I didn't go through the entire forestry blog because I thought it was just about forestry. So if it was at the end of that, that would explain why I missed it. But I don't remember anything else. I don't remember where the initial blog came from. We'd like to give a quick example. Let's say you're using a weapon sporting 20% freeze penetration, and you'd like to try your hand at freezing an NPC like Akka from the new Tombs of Masket raid, who is currently immune to being frozen. First off, you'll roll magic accuracy entirely as normal. You still need to be able to hit your target to catch a freeze. Assuming you hit, you'll be able to freeze Akka, but the freeze will only last 20% of its full duration, which, for some context, Ice Barrage ordinarily freezes the target for 32 ticks. 20% of this would be 6.4 ticks, which rounds down to 6 because of old school mechanics, meaning that you'll be able to freeze Akka, but only for a duration of about 3.6 seconds. Okay, so basically, in terms of freeze penetration, they're saying that using the Akka example, during Akka, whenever he's not praying against magic, you can use magic on him. You can hit him with magic. As long as you're able to actually successfully land damage on a target, um, if they were previously immune to being frozen, this freeze penetration gives you a chance to still freeze them, but for a shorter duration. So for Akka, for example, when during the magic portion, you can try using ancient magics on him, and the penetration will still let you be able to get that freeze off temporarily, which might prove useful depending on your rating group, especially if they don't have powered staffs. In my case, for example, I'm in a pretty, how should I say, overly dominant. My clan is mostly Iron Man for the most part. Okay, so in case of the Iron Man in my clan, this would help them out a lot, and it helps me out as when doing raids with some of them too, because most of them don't have a trident of the swamp yet. They don't even have a simple trident for the most part. So this is going to be really cool because then they can freeze Akka during the magic phase for me. Okay, we don't have to butterfly as much, and we can just chuck damage at it for free. It's an interesting proposal. Anyways, that's this clarification they were talking about. Let me get into the actual post. The sands of the Caridian Desert are stirring once again. Strange happenings and even stranger visitors have appeared along the desert's eastern shore near a recently uncovered ancient vault. This is talking about the new quest. While some secrets lie buried deep, others have been scattered to the winds. 4 remnants of a forgotten fallen empire, untouched and undiscovered for lifetimes. Dukes, 4 different people. Okay, or bosses. Actually, I think these are 4 different bosses. Are you prepared to uncover the mysteries of what these bosses are going to drop? Okay, yes, those are bosses. That's what this blog is about. We're going to suggest the new rewards. Without giving too much away, it's no secret that 4 repeatable bosses, each with their own unique drops, is a first for questing in old school. While the designs aren't finished yet, we expect the bosses to have a wide difficulty range. Some sit at the level of accessibility you might expect from enemies like Vorkath. Okay, so more on the brain dead side of things, while others are shaping up to be the toughest post-quest encounters we've ever made. So I'm expecting more on the level maybe like Phantom Muspa, which requires more like raid-like mechanics. Okay, it rewards more mechanics rather than just having the right gear on, having right the spell book on, and you're good to go. Kind of like Vorkath. So that's what I'm expecting they meant by the ranging the difficulty between the 4 bosses. This range of difficulty means we're aiming for the rewards to sit just below raid level, kind of like Phantom Muspa, where it's like in between raid level and like Vorkath or something, while still packing a punch. In accordance with our new polling process, if the top level concepts below pass the poll, we'll move to community consultation before giving you a chance to get your hands on a beta and lock them in for good. So these are just concepts of the rewards, they're not locked in, and that's what the poll is about. All right, the Virtuous Robes. This is what we were just talking about a little bit earlier. They talked about it a bit at the Winter Summit a few months ago. As well past time to take. Apparently, this is a set that was pulled way back like 2 years ago when Nex was talked about and being pulled for and stuff like that. It got shelved though, and now they're bringing it back because it makes sense to bring it back. For those of you who don't remember, Virtuous Robes are a powerful high-level magic armor set that boosts the powers of the ancient elements: blood, ice, shadow, and smoke. Of course, it also comes with some hefty magic damage bonuses. Okay, this is some concept art for it as well. At this stage, we just want to know whether or not you agree they would make a good reward. They're not proposing any specifics yet. It's just a generalistic idea of like, do you think an armor set towards buffing ancient magics is a good idea? Basically what they're asking. So these are the specific questions. Would you like us to explore the robes as a reward for from the 4 bosses unlocked by completing Desert Treasure 2, the Fallen Empire, to be locked in at a later date? Yes, no, maybe. If we were to offer the robes, would you like them to focus on offering bonuses to ancient magics? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, now the ancient scepter upgrades. Now we actually got spoiled about this about like a month or like a couple months ago, like a few weeks after the Phantom Musbug came out, basically. It was a Reddit leak from some data miners where they actually showed like little models of the ancient scepter having 4 different versions of it, and now they're just kind of confirming like, yep. Yep. Yep, that is definitely in the what we're looking at here. With each different version of the scepter supposedly aimed towards buffing certain each different type of spell in the ancient magic spellbook, which they kind of can just confirm now. Let's see. In keeping with the Desert Treasure theme, we'd like each of the bosses to drop an untradeable gem, likely as a pity drop in the style of work I said, which honestly I really like. I really appreciate that. For untradeable things like this, I do like the pity drops. It's just a pain in the ass having to grind shit out like that. And on top of having like super rare drop rates, because then I just don't like it. If it's untradeable, just make it a pity drop. Especially if it's, essential for your account. So I really like this. I do enjoy stuff like this. I wish they would do this on teleports to important places, such as like the Fasani Nightmare and Chambers of Zarek. I wish those teleports would be pity drops, because it doesn't make sense why. I've done Chambers of Zarek maybe like 2 or 3 times over the drop rate for that teleport tablet, and I still don't have it, and it's a pain in the ass. Using the car system to get there. Anyways, besides the point. These gems could be combined with the Ancient Scepter to buff the chosen element, and this is kind of a concept art of what it would look like. It's kind of similar to how the Karis Partisan works, basically. You just attach a gem to it. I kind of hope it works the same way, where you can just have the gem in your inventory and you can like swap it out just by clicking on the gem. You don't need like 4 different scepters. I would hope that's how that works. That would make the most sense to me. Anyways, but this goes beyond freeze more good. We've got some really creative ways to buff these elements in a way that will really shake up the meta. In particular, we want to focus on ice and smoke. I think ice is fine, to be honest. Kind of where it is at the moment. If anything, I feel like smoke and fuck, I don't remember. Obviously, there's blood, ice, smoke. I don't even remember what the other one is. I feel like all they ever use is blood and ice. Like, I don't even remember. 4 elements. Where are the 4 elements? They just mentioned it a second ago. I don't remember where it is. Here it is. Shadow. I don't even use shadow and smoke. The only time I ever use like smoke is against the or is it shadow? I don't remember. It's one of these two. Only time I ever use one of these two is when I'm fighting the Abyssal Sire to stun it. That's it. That's literally all I use it for. So yeah. I would like those two to receive buffs. I think blood and ice are kind of already in good boat, especially since they kind of buffed it already quite a few times. Anyways, a whole bunch of monsters are immune to poison and freezing. We will want to propose freeze and poison penetration as new offensive stat options. This would let us add offer buffs for these gems and other items that will let you freeze and poison enemies you've never been able to before, opening up new room for experimentation in combat. Okay, and then they're just asking, would you like the gems to be a thing? Do you think freeze penetration and poison penetration should be new mechanics? In terms of my thoughts about it, I'm open to the idea of freeze penetration. I feel like 20% that they kind of stated before might be a little too low in my opinion. I think a little bit higher, because being frozen for only basically like 3.5 seconds just feels kind of short. At least for main accounts. Iron Man is a whole different thing. I feel like it's going to benefit Iron Man more than anything else, but the majority of players in RuneScape are main accounts. So I feel like this doesn't really hold much value for main accounts. at least not at 20%. I think it needs to be a higher duration for this to be worth it, in my opinion. Again, I would much rather they just kind of buff Shadow, buff Shadow, the Shadow spell instead. I forget what the effect of Shadow. I don't remember what the Shadow ability is either. Like that, yeah, just like give me a reason to use it is what I'm asking for. Freeze and blood are already used a lot as it is. I like the idea of poison penetration though. I could definitely see poison penetration kind of serving as a new meta for PVM, for sure, for any boss that you can potentially use magic on. Because then, but you really, all you really need to do, I'm the only thing I'm confused about is what when the penetration part for poison. How does that work? Is it like if it's like 20% poison penetration? Does that mean they take 20% less damage from the poison ticks, like the poison itself, or what? Like they would need to explain that just a little bit. I'm a little confused about that aspect. But even then, I would still take that because a boss that was not susceptible to poison before means that you can open new door. Like I wouldn't say cheese methods, but you could potentially do cheese methods for some bosses, like being able to go for poison penetration, poison them once, then kind of just playing in like hide and seek a little bit, just kind of flinch them. That's the word. You can just kind of flinch them every once in a while as they're poisoned, and just let them die slowly. That would help lower level accounts with maybe some harder bosses. I think it's an interesting idea. It could help. It could help kill maybe some harder to some of the more harder PVM bosses as well. I think it's a cool idea. I'm definitely open to poison penetration for sure. I just freeze penetration though. I just don't think is enough. Yeah, I would like these to be two separate questions, preferably. All right, new rings. This is something I'm actually excited about. I'm mostly excited about this than I am about the magic stuff. All right. The Fremenic rings have been best in slot for their respective niches since 2005. So almost 20 years. Although the Berserker ring is the standout. It's time to level up on the jewelry front. And while we're not dead set on the fine details, we'd like to explore a set of rings that will take the Fremenic rings crown. So they want to offer new best in slot rings, basically, which I am 100% on board for, specifically just because, like I said, we have not had anything in the ring department in forever, in way too long. Literally, the only good ring that we've gotten in any period of time lately has been the light bearer, which doesn't even do anything for your stats. It just refills your special attack meter faster, which outside of Tombs of a Masket is situational. You don't use it all the time, and it's kind of dependent on what gear you're using in the first place to determine whether or not you should even bother bringing it. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's just situational. But even then, like personally, at least for me, I feel like the rings that, aside from the melee rings, out of the combat styles for the rings, I feel like range and magic got the short end of the stick, specifically magic. Personally, I believe magic and range should have some sort of damage bonus from their rings, because at least melee has a damage bonus in terms of melee strength option in the form of the Berserker ring. But if you want to go for accuracy, you still have the treasonous, you still have the slash, cut, and stab variants to offer accuracy bonuses. Whereas range and magic don't have that. They literally only have accuracy and that's it. So I would definitely like a ring that offers a magic damage bonus as well as a range strength bonus attached to them. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, so that's what they're targeting. They definitely want to offer new best in slot melee strength, range accuracy and range strength, magic accuracy and magic damage, slash bonus and melee strength. That one I think is interesting. Why slash specifically? Why not? Yeah, why slash specific? I guess it's because we already have best in slot crush in the form of Inquisitors. You don't really need more Crush. You would just wear whatever the best melee strength ring is in that case, I guess, to go along with that. And yeah, I'm not sure why just slash. Why not stab as well? I don't know. Little interesting. And the best news, these rings are going to be super powerful right out of the box, so you won't need to spend extra time in Nightmare Zone, Soul Wars, or the PvP arena to imbue them. That's good. Okay, so you don't have to worry about imbuing them. You just, once you get them, you can start using them. They're maxed out already. Hi, that's good. I like that. Do you like these ideas? Do you, if it passes, how would you like these rings to function? The highest voted option will be what we base our fleshed out design off of. Simple stat increases that make them the new set of best in slot rings. Unique effects that place the rings into specific niches. I personally would vote for just stat increases to make them new best in slot. I think we're long overdue for that, in my opinion, especially with how bosses are kind of getting tankier with each new boss. They're getting harder to kill, in my opinion, as time goes on. So I do think we need stat increases to kind of keep up with that. It's basically the inflation of the ring slot in a way. So I do think it's necessary. I'm not against having unique effects for rings, but I would rather just have new best in slots. Okay, so here's some. Okay, so this next part, this later sections, I have not read at all, so this is all new to me. The Ruinous Powers. I remember they were talking about the new prayer book when they first announced Desert Treasure 2. I'm excited for this. I want to see what they have in mind. Okay, Old School's first ever set of new prayers. The ability to wield some of the power that put the fallen empire on the map, like the whole map, will soon be yours. You've already given these phenomenal abilities the green light, but we haven't said a whole lot about them since. We think this is the perfect time to move on to the community consultation phase and take a look at some of your ideas. We've seen a handful of fantastic suggestions for one-off prayers and even entire prayer books, but we want more. Go ahead and share your ideas for prayers or, again, entire prayer books that fit the Ruinous Powers theme on social media, and we'll keep an eye out for our favorites. You can feel free to go wild here, but here's what we're especially keen to hear your thoughts on. First up, we want to reiterate that we're not aiming for a carbon copy of RuneScape's ancient curses, which were added in the Temple of Sentistin quest in 2009. Of course, we'll be taking a little inspiration from our forebears, but we want the Ruinous Powers to stand on their own. Most importantly, we want them to feel like a trade-off rather than an upgrade. So if you're about to suggest a new prayer, take some time to think about what the player might have to give up to reap the rewards. So they basically just want to have the player be able to pick their poison. Okay. You want to pick this prayer book to gain these benefits, but then not have access to these other benefits and vice versa. So they want the prayer books to have a trade-off of some sort. One of the most obvious trade-offs we could make is the power of defensive prayers like Protect from Melee, Ranged, and Magic. What if they reduced damage by 90% instead of 100%, but granted additional offensive power or some other utility? The possibilities are limitless. In the spirit of trade-offs, I don't like that idea. Honestly, that just sounds like a buff. That just sounds like a hard buff. Yeah, no, that just sounds like a hard buff. I wouldn't want that, to be honest. It would depend on how much additional offensive power or what the utility is. But that kind of just sounds like a buff. I at least, granted, they're not suggesting this, but I don't like that idea. That just sounds like a buff. I would be if that was a thing, I would be totally okay with just taking a little bit of chip damage here and there for a few hits if it meant increasing my DPS, because then that essentially means I can kill the boss quicker, which means I would take less damage anyways in general. So yeah. In the spirit of trade-offs, we would also propose that players should not be able to one-tick flick the ruinous powers to sustain them indefinitely. You'll still be able to lazy flick to conserve your prayer points and flick between overhead prayers if needed, exactly as many of you are used to doing already. I think this is just more so. So I think they're talking about more things uh, like what you would see in like the Inferno and stuff to save on prayer points. Um, prayer flicking essentially. They don't want the ruinous powers to be able. You don't want to be able to prayer flick them. Essentially, is what they don't want. So, which I think is fair. I do think prayer flicking is kind of how should I say? It was not an intended mechanic in the game, but more it feel prayer flicking just to me feels more like, I wouldn't say bug abuse, but more like game mechanic abuse, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, it's just abusing a mechanic of the game that wasn't for its intended purpose. So I kind of agree with their sentiment. We're raising this now because the ability to indefinitely sustain these new prayers locks us out of some really interesting proposals. We want the freedom to create powerful prayers safe in the knowledge that there's a resource cost for using them. Bear this in mind when tinkering with your ideas. While we imagine most of you hear the ruinous prayers and think, haha, that's a combat thing, we also love to hear suggestions for more skilling focused prayers. They might offer some quality of life, buff your skills, or interact with them in new and exciting ways for the low cost of prayer points. This is something we know might be a bit of the out of the box. So just test the waters. Here's an advisory pool. So they're just kind of getting a feel of what they would like to see in the new prayer book. Exclusively combat, mostly combat, a good mix of combat and skilling. I'm fine with a good mix of combat and skilling, to be honest. I do think we're overdue for skilling buffs in general. We'll be making use of this question, so they'll take our feedback from this. Community designed reward. I don't know what this is. We want to give you the chance to let your creativity run wild and come up with a reward befitting the sequel to an iconic quest. Ooh, that's cool. I don't know if they've ever done it before. If they have, it was before I started getting back into RuneScape. That's kind of cool. If anybody has any suggestions of what they think a cool, unique reward for finishing the quest would be, this is your chance. I would love to hear people's ideas in the comment section down below too. Come up with a design, share on social, and we'll round up our favorites. There are a few rules here though, so keep the creative juices flowing. The one rule we have is that we want you to make something interesting. For example, if you're designing a weapon, don't get bogged down about the stats, level requirements, ammo types, and all that. Just tell us what you would like the weapon to do. Don't worry about the stats and stuff. Just just spitball ideas to them, basically. Just give them cool ideas and let them figure out the nitty gritty stuff. Oh, excuse me. For obvious reasons, we're also keeping a close eye out for rewards that can easily be split into 4 parts and then combined. But don't let that put you off creating whatever your heart desires. If you're still stuck for inspiration, check out this example of a top level overview we dug out of the archive. So these are like some old rewards they proposed in the past or something that it kind of got scrapped. So example is a bleed pole arm, a long range melee weapon with a +1 range the halberds offer. Relatively strong tier 75 with a 4-tick attack speed. Each successful NPC hit rolls a 1 in 20 chance to cause the NPC to bleed. Bleed added as a debuff similar to poison that can be applied to NPCs. So basically a pole arm that has a chance to have a bleed effect, which works like poison basically. So there you have a weapon in a nutshell. If you want to dive into specifics a bit more, it might look like this, and they just give more examples. If you're wondering where some of the best places to share your designs are, we recommend using either the old school subreddit or using the hashtag DT2 community design on Twitter. And I think that's it. So that's it in terms of the blog post, guys. kind of gave my thoughts about it. I would love to hear what you guys think about each of the rewards, the proposed concepts and whatnot. For the most part, I'm more or less okay with the majority of these. I'm mostly excited for the rings. I would just want straight stat increases, to be honest. I think we're overdue for that. I would rather have that first before having some more utility in the game. I think we already have enough diversity in terms of utility for rings. I'm not against having more, but I think we need better stat rings instead first, just because those haven't been touched in almost 20 years. um, yeah. In terms of I like the idea of the ancient scepter getting gems to buff the ancient magics. I'm not entirely sure whether or not I like the proposed buffs, but I like the idea of having buffs for each of the spells. As well as I'm not against having robes that specifically buff ancient magic specifically too. Um, I think it's kind of cool. It's unique. The only problem is though, is that I don't know where it would see much use. That's the only problem. I feel like this would end up getting used mostly for like Slayer or something, and that's it. You wouldn't really use this for bossing, I don't think, unless you're like an Iron Man. But anyways, that's it for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.